Well, now the congresswomen want to boycott Mar. So are they gaining or losing support for their cause?
Hopefully losing. Look, I had no idea anti-Semitism can do stand-up comedy. The first time I went to Israel, 7 out of the 10 days I was there, we had rockets going overhead. We had to run out of the Carmel market because of it. And that was coming from the Palestinian leadership just next door. That's what's causing the problems there. They plunder all the assets, all the money. They keep their people down. Israel is one of the greatest places on earth where Muslims, Jews, Christians, every race, creed, color, gender, live, play, and work side by side. This was an absolute joke, and I am in hopes the Democratic Party says no to this, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost bewildering. Gary, to your point, Israel is the most open, pluralistic, protective of free speech, property, capitalism country in the entire Middle East. I mean, their neighbors are the ones who, stone adulterers and throw homosexuals off of buildings. They're savage, they're tribal. And to your point, maybe the best thing would have been to let these Congress people visit the Middle East and visit Israel. Everyone should visit Israel and to see what just a little bit of freedom and capitalism can do amid a cesspool of really tribal ugliness.
There is another layer to all this. There are new reports out now that some senior House Democrats may be weighing legislative action against U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman and Israel's ambassador to Washington, Ron Dermer, as retaliation against Israel's ban. Let's bring in Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, who's joining us for an exclusive interview. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. So how would Israel respond to some kind of congressional sanction?
We are a strong democracy, and we're very proud of it. We welcome every American to come and visit Israel. And by the way, last week we hosted more than 70 congressmen who came in a bipartisan delegation. They met the prime minister, they met the opposition leader. They saw the facts on the ground. But what happened here, we saw 2 representatives, and I would call them anti-Semites, not for the first time. When you look back at their history, the tweets, they're anti-Semites. They try to come to Israel to instigate, to create provocations, and we can say no. The U.S. did the same in the past when you had other leaders from other countries wanted to come and create provocations in the U.S. So we are saying it's not about the Democrats or Republicans. Those 2 representatives should be isolated, should be condemned by Democrats and Republicans. It is not about Democrats, Republicans. We value the bipartisan support of both parties.
But, Ambassador, very quickly, you didn't answer my question. If there is a sanction by the U.S. Congress against Israel, how would you respond?
I'm not worried about that. I have many friends, and we have a lot of support in Congress. We have a lot of support in the Democratic Party. And I know they don't agree with what those congresswomen are saying, what they are doing. This is not the Democratic Party. This is an extreme, radical congresswoman, and they should be isolated.
Ambassador, one of the reasons they were not let in, presumably, is because the meetings, they were not going to be attending the meetings with Israeli officials. At least that's what we've read. Is that the case, that basically they had sort of laid out a trip that was going to be sort of very politically charged?
Absolutely. And look who invited them. I don't know if you are familiar with the organization that invited them to come to Israel. It's called Miftach. It's a radical extremist organization, anti-Semite, and it has connection to terrorist organization. So once we learned about who is inviting them, we saw the itinerary. They wanted to go to the Temple Mount to create a provocation there. We said, no, thank you. You can do the provocations here in the U.S., but don't bring it to the Middle East.
Ambassador, I think you are bringing up some very, very harsh words and, further adding to this polarization between both sides. If we take politics out of the game, both Gary and Jonathan brought it up about free speech, right, and being a democracy. Isn't this just taking away from your image on the international stage?
So I have to tell you, there was a debate in Israel. Many people say we should have allowed them to come in, meet the people, look at the history. Maybe they will learn something, because you can tell they don't know the history when you're reading their tweets and the Facebook pages. But
a few tweets, I don't think you can come to that conclusion.
Well, you see what they say. I don't think they're knowledgeable about the Middle East. So I think they're not knowledgeable, and they're inciting against Israel, against Jews in the U.S. So yes, some people thought that we should have allowed them to come in Israel. But when we thought about the provocations, what can happen if they will create a provocation in Israel, we decided not to allow them to come in. And it was not an easy decision for us, because it's open. You have 10 flights a day. Every American can fly tomorrow to Israel, and we welcome everybody to come.
Can I just add one thing? I noticed that these two women today did not mention that the Palestinian Authority banned LGBTQ activities in the West Bank because it says it hurts there, whatever they do over there. So all this talk about Israel and human rights, they may need to look into their own house before they start commenting on others at this point in time.
Yep.
Ambassador, how does this being played out in terms of the election that's coming up in Israel?
So it's not a major issue in Israel. With all due respect to those representatives, we always have people who are coming against us. Take England, for example. You have the leader of the opposition, Mr. Corbyn, who is also an anti-Semite, who speaks to boycott Israel, promotes anti-Semitic language. So we are unfortunately, we are used to it. It's unfortunate that it's coming also now to the U.S. Yeah. We saw it in Europe for many years. Now, unfortunately, we see it also coming from D.C.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Ambassador, quickly, Ambassador, thank you for being with us, by the way. Whether or not these Congress people were let in, how should Americans who want to fight BDS approach it? How should they address it? How should they fight these ideas here at home?
So I think we do have the support, and we spoke with David about the Congress. The Congress passed legislation condemning BDS. So I think the more we see legislation in the state level, the more people will know that if they boycott Israel, the U.S. will boycott the boycotters. That is very effective, and I appreciate the support we do have here in the U.S.
By the way, BDS says that they want a Palestinian state from the river to the sea. Now, anybody who's seen a map knows that that completely excludes Israel. What happens to Israel if they get their wish?
We are not here to try it. We know exactly what they want to achieve. We are here to stay. And when we have a dialogue, we do have a dialogue with Arab leaders, with Muslim leaders, and we speak about the future. We reach our hand to negotiations, but not with people who call us to go back to the sea.
Ambassador, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.